Today, we'll be focusing majorly on ASO, how you can organically increase the visibility of your app and get more downloads. And for this session, we have our spokesperson who is uh, the head of ASO at AppTweak, Simon. They help app boost their visibility and downloads. Simon is passionate about new technologies, growth organization, and inline speed scaling. That's fun. At AppTweak, he works with top clients on ASO consulting and projects and a lot more. So, Simon, over to you. Please take it forward.
Hi, thanks. Pleasure to be here. So I'll be sharing my screen.
Yes.
And yes, perfect. So super glad to be here and hello everyone. As a quick thing we like to do in the intro is also feel free to head to the chat and let us know where you're currently at, what company you're a part of. It's always nice to see everyone engage, and we for sure. I will be asking a few questions during the presentation. We might not actually give the results of your answers. There will not be an official poll, but some of my colleagues in the chat are going to look, so we might give you a few ideas at the end of how you engaged and what were some of the answers you gave. So today we'll talk about planning your ASO strategy from 0 to 100. But just before we get in, I want to get a quick word on my company, AppTweak. We are an ASO and market intelligence tool working with app developers and marketers to help them improve their visibility in the App Store and the Play Store, and ultimately increase their organic downloads. Our headquarters are based in Brussels, but we also have offices in San Francisco, Tokyo, and Bangalore. And I know my Indian colleagues are in the chat today. So if you want to hear more about our company, feel free to send them a message. You can see here as well that we've been working with quite a few clients in India and overseas. So we have already built quite a lot of knowledge around your needs. So that's why we're always happy to share more with what's going on in ASO. And as for myself, this was already mentioned, but I basically work as the leader for our team of ASO experts, and we support mobile app and game developers across various regions of the world, various app verticals, helping them set up their ASO strategy and get the most they can out of App Store optimization. For today's agenda, we're going to start by looking at what is ASO and why do ASO. So this is really the 0 to 10 part. Really make sure you understand where you're going if you start doing ASO. Make sure you don't have the wrong expectations as well. And then we'll have a long look at starting ASO, how to get started, what are the different things to keep in mind, and then move to how to set your first goals, and eventually how to monitor your ASO well and adapt to changes to make sure you always have an edge over your competition. So without further ado, we can get started with what is ASO. And I actually want to start with some misconceptions about ASO. Because this is usually what we hear and what leads clients to have the wrong idea about what they're going to get. So before we actually give a definition, I want to make sure you guys understand what not to think ASO is. And there are two main misconceptions. The first one is thinking ASO is the SEO of mobile apps. It's not technically the case, and we're going to address this in just a moment. The second one is when you hear all these great case studies about how ASO increased app installs for a certain app, a lot of people tend to think this means ASO is just like UA. It will give you a nice install boost immediately. And that's something that is very different, even though there is a great potential in growing your app installs with ASO. So first of all, why is ASO different from SEO? There is a shared philosophy, and this is why you probably have heard, if you've heard of ASO, that it's the SEO of mobile apps. ASO started really as the idea of how to do SEO for the App Store and the Play Store. And there is the same philosophy of optimizing a page to improve your visibility, targeting some specific search behaviors, especially certain search queries with the use of keywords. And as in SEO, ASO has a content side and a technical side to it. But where it's important to draw the line is how it's done. When you look at the App Store, the Play Store, the first thing to remember is that you're limited to only one page per store and local. So you will only have one App Store page for India, for instance, or for France. Whereas in SEO, you could have as many landing pages as you want for each country. And that means that your communication is much more limited in the App Store and Play Store. The second thing is that you only have partial control over what people are actually going to see. The template of the page is defined by Apple or Google, which means that you cannot have a very different looking page from your competitors. You also don't have complete control over the reviews and ratings that appear on your store page. So there are ways to influence them, and we will talk about this today. But these are elements that you don't completely control and are still going to influence your customers in making a decision to download your app or not. And finally, you have to remember that in the App Store and Play Store, people behave differently from what they do on the web. They tend to have shorter search queries, for instance, looking very more often to brands, asking less questions. So these are challenges you have when you start thinking of how to boost your visibility. The second misconception I wanted to address is the idea that when we say ASO increased my installs by, let's say, 300%, this is actually a case study on our website. People hear, okay, that means I can do plus 300% downloads just like I would with UA. And it's not exactly the case because ASO and UA are complementary, but don't work in the same way. So downloads are not going to come necessarily at the same pace, not necessarily from the same markets. And we'll talk about the benefits in just a second, but here thinking you can always have a huge growth with ASO needs to be put in the context of what kind of market you're in, what kind of app you have. To really remember, you might not have the same ceiling as some of the best case studies. Here we have the example of top music apps in Google Play and comparing Turkey and the US. If I'm a Turkish app, you can see I have a good chance to make it in the top 5 in Turkey, but we don't see any of these apps make it in the top 5 in the US because here we're looking at a market which is much more saturated, where everyone is doing ASO, whereas in Turkey, not enough people are doing it today. So it's kind of a situation where ASO can really boost your growth, but it will be easier to boost your growth in Turkey than in the US if we take this specific instance. Now, what is actually ASO? It's the process of improving your app's visibility in both stores throughout the app's lifetime and maximize the appeal to users with the objective to increase your downloads. So I'm going to unpack this sentence because it actually gives you everything you have to remember about ASO. The first thing is improving your app's visibility means getting more traffic towards your store page. Second thing is throughout the lifetime of your app, which means it's not a one-time thing. You cannot say, I do ASO once and the benefits are going to keep happening, keep coming, and I don't need to change anything in the future. Third is maximizing your appeal to users, meaning that we also want to make sure that as you get more traffic, these people don't just see your app, but download it. And this is a very important part to ASO. And finally, it's just remember the whole game of ASO is getting more downloads. So it will help you grow your revenue, but here it's really at the top of the acquisition funnel. Now, how it works is that it starts with optimizing your metadata, meaning your app title, subtitle, description, a keyword field on iOS, some Google tags on Google Play, your product ID, developer name, your category is part of your metadata as well. And then we can also move to optimizing your creatives to get a boost in your conversion rate and making sure your traffic becomes actual users. And finally, it extends to improving your reviews and ratings, monitoring your product metrics. Sorry, these are super important on Google Play, and it's also to support inorganic traffic, because as we'll see in a second, ASO actually is a global game, meaning that what happens with your inorganic traffic also impacts the store. And so if we look at a store page with the example of the game State of Survival, ASO is basically everywhere. You have the metadata, you have the icon, the creatives, and you have the ratings and reviews. Everything is going to be part of ASO today. Now, why do it? If you have to be sold, there's only one thing to remember. I have some nice numbers I will share in a second, but the one thing to really remember is that if your product is an app, all acquisition funnels, whether it's from search on the web, an ad, SEA, a referral from another user or a partner, maybe an influencer, every user is going to be led to the store. And ASO is really about making sure you have the best store page and the best visibility in the store. So you have to remember that if you optimize ASO, it will benefit everyone in the end. Now, in terms of pure organic traffic, which is also a big focus in ASO, it's a very nice boost because we've estimated that over time, you get an average 35 to 40% uplift in organic downloads with ASO, and that's across all markets, not taking care of how much have you already been doing or not. And then with certain specificities, you will have the potential to grow much more than these 35 to 40%. The second thing is that ASO is also going to be beneficial because the lifetime value of organic users tends to be 3 to 5 times that of paid users, meaning that these efforts you make are actually going to have better chances at getting you more revenue, more retention, and this is really a key challenge here. These are some of the best quality users you can find, and ASO is going to help you unlock your potential here. And finally, when we look specifically at how store traffic works today, Apple is sharing that 65% of all app installs are actually coming from App Store search. And when we look at Google, Google does not disclose the same kind of numbers, but in our experience, we've seen that browse traffic inside the Play Store is the first channel, the most important channel for many apps, for most apps and games, to get the most downloads. Now, another reason to do ASO, and I spoke to this already about inorganic traffic, and it's to support your paid UA. First way to do this would be just by aligning your creative designs to improve the conversion rate of your ads and reducing your cost per install. And here we have an example from last year during the pandemic when Uber Eats really made sure to just align the messaging between Facebook ads that you can see on the left, and next to it, this was one of their screenshots on the Play Store, which was just order to your doorstep. Keeping the same message across the different funnels is going to really benefit the conversion rate of your paid UA as well, and it ultimately reduce your CPI. It goes a step further when you look at specific channels such as Google UACs and Apple search ads, because these ad networks, which are these ad channels that you can have that are native to the store, are actually going to have a look at your app metadata and conversion metrics And this will impact your ad's performance. It can lower the price of your bid, for instance. As Apple says regarding Apple search ads, that your app's relevance to the user's search query, among other factors, determines if your ad is the one shown. That means that the Apple search ad algorithm is going to have a look at your app's metadata and see, does this match with what people are looking for? And if so, your bid becomes more relevant, and therefore you have more chances of your ad being the one shown. An even more advanced way of doing that will be to use certain features of stores such as creative sets on Apple search ads to maximize your conversion rate with contextualization. So here we have the example of a fitness app, and basically what you can do by playing around the different creatives you upload with ASO is going to address different kind of problematics for your users and use them as a way to make sure that if you have a certain ad group, you show them the best creative possible. So you can see that basically here, the first 3 screenshots are going to be the base as a default USP of our app. But then if we have people searching for something very fitness specific or even more specific around workouts, we have some screenshots that are more dedicated to that issue, and we can move them with Apple Search as creative sets. We can move them to another position earlier in the gallery to make sure this is what people searching for a fitness keyword will actually see. And the same works with diet, the same works with weight loss. So this is where you want to align ASO and UA to make sure that you can really contextualize what people see in the store depending on where they're coming from. One word of caution with ASO, because this is also a big challenge, it's to measure the impact. The reason for that, for why ASO is harder to measure, is just because you don't have the same level of tracking that is available from the stores compared to running paid campaigns with the help of an attribution tool such as just like Adjust. And the second thing is that the stores are going to react, their algorithms react to all user signals, and that includes paid traffic, that includes referral traffic, people who came and did something on the store which you did not just trigger with ASO. That means that if you stop suddenly running Facebook campaigns, this will hurt your download velocity, which is one of the factors that algorithms take into account to decide if they should show your app in search rankings for a certain query, if they should show it in the top charts, etc. Same thing has to do to work with your conversion rate, your retention rate. So here it's really, don't forget ASO is in the middle of everything, which means that you have the option to still measure the impact, but it becomes harder. And that's when having an ASO tool is also going to help you. You can see here an example of how we can see if a title change gave a nice rebound in download estimates or did not have a lasting impact, and same when there's a change in feature graphic, for instance. Now it's time for the good stuff and to see how you can get started with ASO. And the first thing is to think about this fundamental equation of ASO, because how you're going to do ASO and how you're going to start for your company, your specific needs, is going to depend on how you look at this equation. So the first thing is traffic times conversion rates means downloads, and then we drill down. So if we look at traffic, the question is, do you want to improve your store traffic? If so, are we talking search or browse traffic? Are we talking organic or paid traffic? And same goes if we're talking about referral traffic. Are we talking about ads from the web, from other apps? Are we talking about referral from an influencer, from a website? PR? Are we talking referral from organic referral from your users telling their friends to download? And again, always this question of is it organic? Is it paid? How can you influence this? And so the whole work on traffic is going to decide where exactly, what is the lever you want to pull to say, I'm going to increase my traffic. And then we turn to the conversion to say, okay, how do we not only increase this traffic, but also how do we improve our conversion? And there, some of the factors you will have to take into account is the quality of the lead. For instance, someone searching for your brand name is going to be already quite convinced they should download your app compared to someone who's been who just receives who just sees an ad on let's say Instagram and taps there just to see more about your app, but is not sure they want to download it. Another thing to consider is the consistency of your acquisition funnel, and that's exactly the example I just gave. It's, are we going to have to see the same thing from the ad to the app store to inside your app, or is there going to be discrepancies that create confusion for the users? First thing is optimizing directly your creatives. Are your creatives appealing? How can you make them more appealing, and specifically more appealing to the users who are coming to your store page? So this is when you want to also look back at the traffic and say, okay, this is my best traffic source and how can I optimize for them? It's going to be, how can I optimize my creatives for the specific country I'm in, because people don't react to the same things depending on whether we're in Asia, Europe, or the Americas, for instance. And finally, conversion rate is also going to have it's going to be looking at your user reviews and ratings and how you can still influence this to make sure that what people see on the store is going to reassure them, give them confidence this app is a very good app and they should download it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is keywords and how they can boost your traffic. And this is mostly for organic traffic, but it also applies to some of your paid search UA. So the way it works is that discoverability on the stores, and that means both search and browse traffic. This discoverability depends on how your app is perceived by indexing and ranking algorithms. So here, to really make sure everyone knows the difference, the indexing algorithm is going to be an algorithm that just scans through your metadata, your creatives, everything they can find about your app, and indexes what it's about. Every word that you use, every keyword is going to help you be indexed and considered to be a relevant app for a certain topic. The second algorithm that's going to go to work is a ranking algorithm, which is going to be based on the user search query, for instance. It can also be based, when we're talking about browse, on the user's interest, and say, okay, based on what I know from my user, the search query he entered, or the previous apps this user downloaded, let me find in the list of relevant apps that have been indexed and decide which one should go first, which one should go second, etc. So here, to really give the best signal possible to these algorithms, we're going to use keywords and put them in your metadata at different places. So what you can see on the left is a small graph we've made to show how your metadata, app title, short description, or long description can impact your visibility in the store, because they don't have the same weight, and also how they might impact or not impact the conversion. And so we can see, for instance, that an app on Google Play would get the best visibility out of the keywords in its title, but these keywords are also going to impact conversion. Whereas if we look at the long description has a very important aspect to visibility, but less than 5% of store users actually click on the read more button of the store long description, meaning that very few people see it and will be influenced in their decision to download your app or not. How to optimize your keywords. We have a 3-step process that we encourage to follow and repeat, which is to first do a long keyword research. What you have to do here is build a list of keywords based on that we're going to call a semantic dictionary. And you can create this list with what you already can tell about your app, just the top of mind keywords, what's already in your current copy. And then also have a look on your competitors' metadata. What are they saying? What are the keywords that are working for them? So also what are the keywords for which you are ranked the highest? Same for your competitors. And don't forget to look at what keywords you're already using in search ads, Google UAC, Apple search ads, and make sure that you can identify which keywords already convert best and make sure that they are also part of your metadata. So all these keywords go into a very long list of keyword called a semantic dictionary, which you can also group by clusters. And this is what it could look like. For instance, if we speak about Google Maps, we would have a cluster around just the other Google apps that your app might be considered relevant for, but also everything that's GPS and navigation related, and then some other functionalities you may have in Google Maps, which would be related to restaurants, other businesses, finding commodities such as gas stations, ATMs, bars, etc., and even some pure functionalities such as having a map offline, being able to save your map, etc. So all these are going to be different keywords you want to put in your semantic dictionary and create in a small cluster. And then we're going back here and we're going to step 2, which is selecting and prioritizing which keywords you're actually going to put in your metadata. So the way to do this is to use a lot of different metrics that are available in ASO tools mostly. This is where AppTweak comes in and help you. It's going to tell you what is the volume for a certain keyword, what amount of traffic you can get out of it. It's going to also estimate your chance to reach the top 5 or top 10 of search rankings, which are the positions where you're actually going to get some downloads and not just say, okay, I am relevant, but people will see your app and be interested in downloading it. We're also going to tell you where you currently rank. We're going to have a look at what are how many opportunities you have to create combinations of keywords based on this. And you can also have a look at how relevant is a keyword for your app. Once you've done this, it's all pick the keywords at the top of your list to say, okay, I want to have these, and within the list of selected keywords, decide which one should go to your title because they are the most important, which one should go to your short description, which one should go to your long description. Once you do this, upload your new store listing to the store. And then you also want to measure and iterate. Look at how your keyword have moved, how your keywords have moved. What are the new top position for your keywords? Are you gaining downloads or losing downloads with what you've changed? What is the overall increase in visibility? And based on these numbers, decide how to tweak what you've just done and how to keep improving, keep things moving. The second step is then going to talk about creatives. So here we're leaving aside a bit the question of improving traffic and trying to improve conversion now. So where to start if you want to improve your conversion is going to be the icon and screenshots. A platform we know well, Splitmetrics, has conducted a study that concluded that icon and screenshots both have over 20% average CVR uplift. meaning that if you're looking at what is going to be the most efficient asset to change to boost your conversion, icons and screenshots can result in an average over 20% of CVR if your test was done well. How to optimize your creatives is going to be the same kind of logic as for keywords. It's going to be researching, prioritizing, and testing. So if you're doing the research, you want to make sure your creatives are going to follow your brand guidelines, keep the same brand feeling, brand tone that you already have in other places of your app. You also want to look at competitors' creatives to understand what is the messaging they're trying to get to users. Is this something that is relevant for you or not? What are some design tricks they're using and that work well? And that's where you also have to not just look at your competitors, but look at the broader spectrum and industry best practices, because some categories are more active in creative optimizations than others. And finally, you also want to look at what are the other assets you're doing, because this is going to be a key element if you have a lot of UA traffic going to your app. Once you've done this, again, go to the prioritization step, assess how big of a change are you going to be making to an asset, assess what is going to be the overall impact you can expect by changing this asset. If you're changing your video, for instance, it has less power than changing your icon or screenshots. So you have to consider, is this going to be a very big impact or not? And finally, don't forget to also check in with your design team how much time it takes to work on a new asset, to decide when you're going to be testing everything and what to test first. And then you go to the testing phase. And to do this, the recommendation is to do an A/B test. There are several platforms to do this. We at Aptwig recommend using Google Play Experiments because it is free and affects everyone in terms of traffic. However, we also have seen that while this is a very powerful tool, the reliability of your results is not always great. So we have developed a new framework called A/B test that will help you get the best results possible out of Play Experiments and see immediately which are the creative changes you should apply to your entire store listing and when not to apply a creative change. Once you've applied your change, also confirm your results with a sequential analysis, and don't forget to draw the conclusion of your test. If the test was unsuccessful, have a look at what it means. Why was it unsuccessful? Make sure to keep note of the conclusions, and that way you can scale your results. If positive, try to test the same thing in other markets. If negative, make sure to write, let's not test the same hypothesis immediately in another market because we can expect the same thing. When we talk about conversion, there's also a question of reviews and ratings. So here I want to quickly mention how you can try to control the outcome of people seeing your reviews and ratings and thinking whether they want to download your app or not. There are three main ways to control this outcome. The first one is start by just replying to negative customer reviews. Addressing someone who's disgruntled with your app, telling them we're working on improving it, thank you for your feedback, is a way to eventually get them to change their star rating. And at the same time, it shows your community that you're engaging with people. So it's going to be a very big impact. You can also upvote some of the positive detailed reviews that are being left to make sure these are the first reviews people see on your store. And finally, you can use a prompt, an in-app prompt inside your app to trigger customers when they are the most satisfied, when they just had a very great experience, and ask them, hey, would you be willing to leave a rating and or a review? So you have here the example of an in-app rating and review prompt, how it would look like in Google Play. So this means that with this prompt, users will see it when you decide to trigger it, and they won't have to leave your app to rate it. So it's a very seamless user flow, which works quite well to get you more reviews and ratings, and especially more positive ones. Besides that, don't forget to also mine the reviews and ratings to improve your messaging, to improve your marketing. You can analyze reviews and ratings to determine what are your customers' favorite features, are there any pain points, and know what to talk about and what to give to your product team as something to improve. And you can even conduct a sentiment analysis to identify what are the best keywords, what are the most positive ones, or the most negative ones, to know what keywords to target in your metadata, and go the full round of looking at traffic, conversion, and back to traffic. Now, I haven't talked a lot about browse traffic, but it is important to not forget about it. And here, what you have to know is that the App Store and the Play Store have different curation systems. On Google Play, curation is mostly algorithmic, and it's going to be based on your on topics that also appear in your app's metadata. So the keywords you target, the app category, and the Google tags you choose are going to impact how you might appear, for instance, here in offline games. The app groupings also rely on matching algorithms based on user preferences. So the app ratings and installed preferences, what other apps they've installed, are also going to be a factor in how you're displayed in certain categories and not others. If we look at the App Store, on the other hand, the App Store is mostly curated through human curation. Apple employs many editors, and these editors are very sensitive to storytelling, and also interested to know if there's any business interest for Apple. Are you going to be advertising? Is your app going to generate a lot of traffic on the store? And so what you can do there is prepare a pitch with the best storytelling you can give to really help editors in their work and know what they're going to talk about if they're choosing to feature your app. Now, we've gone through the different things you can get started on for ASO, but it's also important to understand how to set your first goal. And here, it's important to identify your priorities using App Store data. So you have to identify the KPI you want to improve. Are we talking about conversion, about traffic, about the app quality? And look at what are the data available in the store console that you're going to be looking at. So in blue, we have something that is best to look at for Apple, in green for Google Play, and in black is both stores at the same time. So if we're thinking we want to measure the improvement in traffic, on iOS, we're looking at the total impressions you're getting and have they improved or not, and specifically per market or also per channel. On Google Play, on the other hand, we're going to look at page views. The difference here is coming from the fact that on iOS, you can download an app straight from the search results or the browse, the curation side, and you don't have to go to the actual product page. On Google Play, this is always a step you have to take. So that's why we're taking the pages on Google Play. Same thing will work with conversion on iOS and Google Play. When we look at quality, both iOS and Google Play offer KPIs in terms of ratings and reviews. Google Play also offers what they call Android Vitals. It's not available on iOS. So when we have chosen which KPI we're looking at, which is the one we want to improve, we also have to drill down per source to define our course of action. So here, for instance, let's say I want to improve my search traffic. So I'm going to be looking at search impressions and say, okay, I have to choose between improving paid impressions or organic impressions. Then I'm going to look at how many keywords am I already ranking for? What is the volume of traffic attached to these keywords? How difficult is it to improve my rankings on my current metadata or on new keywords I would like to target? Are we talking about generic or branded keywords? Which cluster are we talking about? And then say, okay, let's say I'm Google Maps again. I want to improve my organic search traffic for business relevant keywords. And so I'm going to then look at what are the business relevant keywords I already rank for, which are the one I'm already using in my metadata. How difficult is it to target new ones? Which one should I target? And then apply them to my metadata. So the third step, once I've chosen my course of action, is also to prioritize the different actions I can take, because I can act on everything at once, at least theoretically. But I have to prioritize which is the one that is most important to me right now. Also compare with the expected impact and the available resources to me, and then choose which one to do first and which one to do second or last. It's very important to not try to do everything at once, especially if you want to measure your impact, because then everything will be mixed and the impact is going to be blurry at best. To also identify where to act, don't forget to spy on your competitors, because knowing what your competitors are doing, checking if they're seeing an impact is going to help you decide, should I do the same or should I go a different way? And the way to identify your competitors is not just to pick who you already know, but look around the store and classify your competitors in different categories. So here you have the example of Hearthstone and who are their competitors. And we have some direct rivals and threats just above or below them in terms of app power. And these would be Yu-Gi-Oh!, Duel Links, Gwent, or Legends of Runeterra. We have some market leaders who you're not going to be able to compete with immediately, but who you can look at for inspiration, with Raid Shadow Legends or Mortal Kombat. And finally, we have distant rivals such as the Elder Scrolls Legends, which is not very active in the store, not a big threat, but someone you just want to keep an eye on and check on every once in a while, just to make sure they haven't changed something and suddenly become a threat. Once you know who to look at for identifying your weaknesses, identifying opportunities to take advantage of, and identify best practices, this is when you can also choose to look at a timeline to see what they've been doing and monitor everyone for what they're doing, what are the best practices you can learn from them. Finally, once you are started with that, once you have your course of action, you know which pillar of ASO you're using, you're leveraging, you have your KPIs ready, you started doing it, and you have your metadata up and running, don't forget to monitor everything and adapt every time. So here, the iterative process we would suggest, for instance, for optimizing metadata or creatives, is to, step one, always define different options you can have and how you would address each customer intent. Step two is going to be prioritizing in which order you want to address these, and which one to test first. Is there a moment where you cannot do everyone, you cannot address everything? And then before you actually go to the store, also checking in with non-ASO teams that what you're about to do is also consistent with your overall growth strategy, that you're not going to suddenly create confusion between ASO users and App Store users, Play Store users, and UA, for instance. Once you've done all this and you have confirmed what you're about to launch is working, start testing, monitor your performance, And when you start seeing a dip or when you start seeing a new opportunity to improve further, iterate and go back to step one. This is when you'll have the opportunity to also look at some things that are going to impact you when you don't necessarily expect them. First thing to remember is monitoring is going to be also important because there are algorithm changes in the store. Here we've shown two examples of algorithm changes when you see a visibility dip, not just for Toon Blast, but also for the competitors in terms of keyword visibility. And that means that in this period, you want to see, okay, my keywords are losing ranks. Is this happening to my competitors as well? What can I do to react? And the same goes for your installs. Are your installs suddenly coming more from generic keywords? Are they dropping? And as soon as you see these metrics, react, adapt to what has changed in the store. Why is the store behaving in a different way? The second thing is don't forget to also check in what the App Store and Play Store are doing in terms of designs, because some of the changes they're going to make are going to affect your KPIs, are going to affect the impact of your creatives. To give you two examples, when Apple introduced iOS 11, so this was already a few years ago, suddenly you were being able to see creatives in the search results. And that meant that conversion became much more important in search with the help of creatives. More recently, if we look at Google Play has done several design changes to the store page, with especially the feature graphic disappearing from this top position and instead appearing as the poster frame for the video. So it's still important, and it means that the screenshots you had here are now moved on the side and are going to be invisible to users until they scroll. So suddenly the feature graphic is not only the first thing people see, but almost the only one. And that means that you have to take it into account when designing your creatives. Is this creative going to be seen by everyone or not? Finally, I already mentioned this, but don't forget to align priorities with other teams. Product teams, user acquisition teams, and engagement teams all have a stake in ASO, all have a stake in what's happening in the store. Product teams with your product vitals, for instance, user acquisition with everything conversion rate related, your engagement team with what people are saying in customer and reviews. So make sure to talk to everyone, make sure that they know you're doing ASO, and just remind them, teamwork makes the dream work. So I think we still have a bit of time for questions. So thank you all for listening, and happy to take questions now.
Thank you so much, Simon. That was like super insightful. And I'm saying it personally also because I myself, being from a non-tech background, I think I learned a lot today.
That's great.
Yeah, I did. And I can see we have a lot of questions. Wait, just let me. Okay. So I'll shoot the questions one by one. Okay, so first question I can see it's from Abhi. He says, "Hi Simon, I'm an indie app developer working on a cycling Android app, and I've recently crossed 50K downloads, and I'm working on increasing retention and reducing churn. And I can see he's already exploring app tweak. Do you have any tips for him, or like anything you would want to suggest?"
Yeah, so if you're working on improving retention, I'd say the first thing is go check what people are saying in user reviews and ratings. There are always some hidden gems, and just knowing what people enjoy is nice. And then you can also look at your competitors. If you're already addressing what people are saying, please fix this or please improve this. You can also have a look at what's happening to your competition. Are people saying the same? Are they telling that there's value in a certain feature you don't already have. And you can even look at just keyword volumes in the end. If there's one keyword that you see has a ton of volume and it's not super relevant to your app, think about how it could become relevant. So for instance, for a cycling app, let's say you want more sharing. If there's, you can have a look at, is there a share your ride, any volume for the share your ride keyword? Is there any volume for, I don't know, find repair shops around you? There's always a lot of different clusters, and looking at what are the keywords available, what are people saying in your reviews, what are people saying in your competitors' reviews, all of that is super important to improve the retention.
Great. I hope, Abhi, you got the answer to your question. Before we move forward to the second question, we have a small poll coming up. It will just help us understand if anyone from the audience would like to get connected to AppTweak experts or CleverTap experts. So just take a moment and I'll move to the second question in just a bit. Okay, I think, Simon, I'll ask my second question while people are doing the poll.
Sure.
So I can see there's another question, and the question is, how is ASO different for iOS and for Android?
That's a big one. So in terms of principles, they're not very different. It's still going to be a question of traffic and conversion, but how to do it is going to differ. For instance, if we're speaking about traffic, on iOS, your app title is the most important field for adding keywords. Then it's your subtitle, and then it's the keyword field, which users do not see. And so you have in total 160 characters only to get the best keywords you can have, while still making sure that you have a title that is going to convert. So don't just put only keywords and forget that humans are also reading this and are going to be appealed or repelled by what you wrote. On Google Play, it's very different because your app title is again going to be the most important thing, but then your short description has little impact on indexing and conversion, and your long description has more impact, and that one is much longer, and there you want to be repeating the most important keywords. Whereas on iOS, repeating does not have any effect. So this is just one example among many. I think we have on our website, on our blog, a long guide explaining the differences. So if you're wanting to learn everything about this, I invite you to get in touch with the AppTweak team members who are here, who will help you find your way to this guide. Because there's so much to talk about, I can't take the full question.
No problem. I'm sure this person will get in touch with the AppTweak team and will get the answer. So another one, how do we conduct A/B testing for iOS store listing elements, since it does not provide the tools like in the Android store?
That's a great question. There are several ways of doing it. One way would be to just run tests with paid platforms that exist out there that emulate the store. I'm personally not a big fan, just because you need to drive traffic to these platforms, and it actually means having only UA traffic. So if you already have a good budget, I would still say it's worth it if a lot of your traffic comes already from UA. But if you have another mix, it's better to either try to do something with Apple search ads and the creative sets, which allow you to just mix up the order of your creatives and show, focus on the first 3 creatives and show different options of 1, 2, 3 to see which one convert best. Or more easily, just do a sequential test. It will require you to be very careful and paying close attention every day to what's happening, but just saying, I'm going to use set A on week 1 and set B on week 2, as long as there's not a big shift in seasonality between the 2 weeks, not a big shift in your traffic mix, then it's probably going to be the best vision you'll have on how people react.
I'm getting so many questions, but you can tell me when you want me to stop. Okay, so another one, what percentage of app install is contributed organically in general for, let's say, an e-commerce category of app?
So for e-commerce, I would not be able to tell just like that. That would be a great study we can try to do at some point. But what you want to do is you have to consider there are different notion of keywords, because you have the organic keywords and the paid keywords. You also have generic versus brand versus competitors. So what we do at AppTweak is that we have an algorithm in our tool helping us tell the difference, and there are features in there to help you assess what is your current mix and compare it to your competitors to try and have an idea of, are you getting more generic keywords or more brand keywords installed, for example. In general, brand keywords bring more installs in total. The way stores work today is that there is a big preference being given to brands, because people quite often already know who they're looking for, or at least have an idea of who's the market leader and want to learn about what are the different alternatives out there. But in my experience, pure generic traffic would still be about 30% of total App Store and total Play Store traffic, not specifically for the for a category, but in general. But so that means that if you're not targeting any generic keywords, you potentially have on average about 30% gains to make out of this if you're able to rank well for these keywords.
Great. Shall we take one more?
Sure.
Okay. So is there a framework to identify the priorities for App Store optimization? And what's the most important for an app that's getting launched into a market?
So the most important things for launching an app is to have your metadata and creatives ready on day one. When it comes to the metadata, my advice is, depending on your budget and your success with past apps, be careful not to target too competitive keywords. The very high volume keywords, for instance, tend to be very competitive. And so even if you can index for them, you might not rank very high, and you will be disappointed in the amount of traffic you find. So try to balance keywords that still offer as much traffic as possible, but also for which you think you will have a good chance of reaching the top 10. And then also think about how your creatives are going to work well with this kind of traffic, with any other plans you have. If you're planning to have a UA boost campaign at the very beginning, what is going to make people stick inside your app and think this is a very cool app, and show that in your creatives as well.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry for everyone who had put in their questions and we were not able to answer. We'll run out of time if we address every question, but we'll definitely reach out to you guys answering your question. But I'll leverage this opportunity. I have a very basic non-tech question. So you mentioned during your presentation that the short description and meta description behave differently for Apple Store and for Google Store. Is it the same for creatives as well?
Yes and no. In terms of pure creatives, you have different behaviors in what creatives are seen, for instance.
Okay.
To begin with, if we look at creatives in search results, you only see them on iOS. On iOS, you will see the app icon and the first 3 screenshots if they're in portrait. If in landscape, it's only one. Same thing if it's a video and not a screenshot. On Google Play, on the other hand, except for very specific situations, search results will only show you the app icon, app title, and I think the short description. I'm not even sure anymore. But so you see less in the search results, and then you have to go to the store page. So here it's always kind of remember to check what are people seeing at which step to know where to optimize first. Because for instance, if you start optimizing screenshot number 7 to 10 in iOS, very few people will see these unless you use a trick like creative sets in Apple Search Ads. But most of the time, these are going to be screenshots where you might be able to give more information to users, tell them about more advanced functionalities of your app, but very few people will see them. So always think strategically at what are people going to see, and check with an app, with an iPhone or with an Android device, how it looks like, because it's all about the user experience in the end.
Makes sense. Thank you. Thank you so much for answering this question. And thank you so much, Simon, for this entire presentation. This session was extremely wonderful and very insightful. And that brings us to the end of our session and end of day 2. Tomorrow we'll be back at the same time, and tomorrow we'll be talking about monetization and analytics. So I would request everyone to join us again tomorrow at the same time to gather more knowledge, to understand more, and to get more crucial insight that you can apply in your business very easily. If you have further questions, I would request you all to send an email at marketing@clevertap.com, and we would get in touch with you as soon as possible. Thank you. Thank you, Simon, and thanks
Thank you
the
for
entire
having me.
audience. Thank you.